Hey guys, today we are going to read and discuss Act 3, Scene 2. This is one of the longest scenes in our play, and I strongly advise you to read through this scene on your own before you watch this video. In this scene, Bassanio receives great happiness and bad news on the same day. Bassanio has arrived in Belmont and Portia has fallen in love with him. She pleads with Bassanio to wait a few days before he tries the test of the caskets, but Bassanio wants to make his choice immediately. He chooses the lead casket with a picture of Portia inside it, and so wins her as his wife. Gratiano and Nerissa congratulate them and announces that they also intend to get married. Lorenzo, Jessica, and Salerio then arrives from Venice. They are all pleased to see one another, but Salerio has bad news. Antonio's ships have all been lost or wrecked, and he has written to Bassanio to tell him that he can't repay Shylock the money which he borrowed and will therefore have to pay the forfeit nominated in the bond. Portia insists that Bassanio and Gratiano must return to Venice as soon as they have taken their marriage vows. Let's begin our reading on page 97. Belmont, Portia's mansion. Bassanio, Portia, Gratiano, and attendants enters. This scene breaks the tension. We want to know what happened to Antonio, but first we are back in Belmont. The setting therefore is Belmont, a room in Portia's house, and the time just more than 3 months after Antonio has signed the bond. This is the first time we see Portia and Bassanio together. Remember, Portia and Bassanio has met one another at a banquet while Portia's father was still alive. Portia, please put it off. Just wait a day or two before you choose, because if you choose wrong, I lose your company. Therefore delay a while. There's something, but it's not love, that tells me I do not want to lose you. And you know, it is not hate that prompts in such a way. But least you should not understand me well. A girl's supposed to keep thoughts to herself. I'd like to keep you here a month or two before you make your choice. I could tell you how to choose right, but then I'd break my oath, which I will never do. So you may lose me, but if you do, you'd make me wish I'd sinned by breaking my sworn oath. Confound your eyes, they have bewitched me and divided me against myself. One half of me is yours, the other half yours too. I'd say it's mine, but if it's mine, it's yours. So all is yours. Oh, these bad times put bars between true owners and their rights. And so, though I am yours, I am not yours. But even if your choice is wrong, let fortune go to hell for it, not I, for I won't break my oath. I speak too long, but it's to slow time down, to add to it and draw it out in length just to delay your choice. Portia speaks to Bassanio. Even though Portia is in love with Bassanio, he still needs to choose one of the caskets. She desperately wants Bassanio to wait a while before he makes a choice, but Bassanio wants to choose immediately. Obviously by now, Portia knows which casket is the correct casket, and so do we, but she cannot reveal the correct casket to Bassanio. How will she ever know if he really loved her if she tells him which casket to choose? So she decides not to tell him, even though she knows that it might break her heart if he chooses the wrong casket. Let's analyze it line by line. Portia says, therefore, delay a while. There's something, but it's not love, that tells me I do not want to lose you. She says, but don't think I'm saying it's love. Portia does not want to admit openly that she loves Bassanio. But then she continues to say, it is not hate that prompts in such a way. Portia wants Bassanio to understand that although she says it is not love, it is definitely also not hate that advises her to behave in this way. But least you should not understand me well. Least means just in case you don't understand what I'm trying to say. A girl supposed to keep thoughts to herself? An unmarried girl shouldn't say what she thinks. They should keep their feelings to themselves. I'd like to keep you here a month or two. Portia wants Bassanio to stay in Belmont for a month or two before he chooses one of the caskets. But we know that Bassanio does not have the luxury to do so, since he needs to return to Antonio to repay his loan. Remember that Bassanio also had to take an oath in which he swore never to reveal the content of the caskets he has chosen to anyone, never again seek the hand of any girl in marriage, and to leave Belmont immediately if he makes the wrong choice. Therefore, if he chose the wrong casket, Portia would no longer have the pleasure of Bassanio's company. Before you make your choice, before you choose one of the caskets. And then Portia says, I could tell you how to choose right, but then I'd break my oath. From this we can assume that Portia also swore an oath to her father not to reveal to any of her suitors which casket contains her picture. Portia says, which I will never do. In other words, she is not willing to break her oath. They have bewitched me and divided me against myself. Shame on you for looking at me so that I'm bewitched and confused. Oh, these bad times refer to the unfair times that she now needs to face. True owners and their rights. Here Portia is referring to her father's will, which prevents her from choosing her own husband. She feels this is something she has the right to do for herself. And so, though I am yours, I am not yours. She is in love with Bassanio, and if she had the right to choose, she would have chosen Bassanio. But now she feels she belongs to Bassanio, but not legally. But even if your choice is wrong, let fortune go to hell for it, not I, for I won't break my oath. Portia says that she cannot be blamed for Bassanio's choice if he chose the wrong casket. The blame will fall on fortune. And in the end she says, just to delay your choice. She's saying, I'm talking a lot because I want to keep you from choosing. Bassanio, let me choose now, for as it is, I'm tortured on the rack. Bassanio doesn't want to wait. He feels waiting is too painful to do and is a form of torture. He uses figurative speech. Bassanio says, I'm tortured on the rack. Let me quickly explain the concept, the rack. The rack was an instrument of torture. They would bind the person's hands and feet in 4 opposite corners, and then they would stretch the person out and slowly increase the strength, pulling the person apart bit by bit. This was mainly used to extract confessions from criminals and traitors. So as the person is slowly stretched in opposite directions, the pain would become unbearable and they would finally confess. For Bassanio, to delay making the choice creates the same sense of pain and agony as if he were to be on the rack. Portia, on the rack, Bassanio? Then confess what treason there is mingled with your love. Treason is a crime of betrayal. Portia is teasing Bassanio by picking up on his metaphor where he said, I live upon the rack, and she's extending it. Bassanio, none but the ugly treason of mistrust which makes me doubt that I'll enjoy my love. There's no more friendliness between fire and snow than treason and my love. Bassanio says treason and love will never exist together. The only treason is that he doubts himself. He does not know if he will make the right choice. None but the ugly treason of mistrust. The treason of mistrust refers to his anxiety or lack of certainty. He doesn't know which casket is the correct casket, which makes me doubt that I'll enjoy my love. He's afraid that he won't be able to enjoy his love. In other words, he is afraid that he will not win Portia as his wife. And then in the last line, there's no more friendliness between fire and snow than treason and my love. Just as snow and fire can't exist together in friendship, so falsehood or treason isn't part of his love. Portia, yes, but I fear you speak upon the rack where under torture men say anything. Portia says, yes, but I suspect you say what you do because you're on the rack where men are forced by torture to confess all kinds of things. In other words, a man will confess and say anything just to make the pain go away. Bassanio, promise me life and I'll confess the truth. Now in those days, prisoners who were tortured on the rack were offered the chance to live if they confessed. Bassanio and Portia are playing with the theme of torture upon the rack. They joke that Bassanio is being tortured by Portia so that he'll tell the truth about his feelings for her. Bassanio says, promise me life and I'll confess the truth. Your love will make me live. Portia, well then confess and live. Tell the truth and you will be allowed to live. Bassanio, confess and love. When I was on the rack, that would have been the total sum of my confession. O happy torment when my torturer teaches me answers that will set me free. Just lead me to my fortune and the caskets. Bassanio says he has nothing to confess but his love for her. He is happy that he is being tortured by Portia, and she tortures him because she has not told him that she loves him. Bassanio says confess and love. In those days, you didn't just say, I love you. If you were prepared to marry someone, then you would say, I love you. Bassanio says, the total sum of my confession, in other words, my full confession would be that I love you, and that he has nothing else to confess. Portia, come then, for I am locked in one of them. But if your love is true, you'll find me out. Nerissa and the rest all stand aside. Let there be music while he makes his choice. Then, if he loses, he'll end like a swan upon a stream, fading in music. To complete the comparison, making it more true, my eyes streaming with tears shall be the deathbed for him. He may win, and what is music then? Then music is the flourish of bright trumpets when true subjects bow to a new crowned monarch. Then it's like those sweet sounds at the break of day that creep into the dreaming bridegroom's ear and summon him to marriage. Now he goes, with no less presence but with much more love than the young Hercules, when he set free the virgin princess chained to a rock as tribute paid by howling Troy to the sea monster. I am that sacrifice. The rest who stand some way off are the weeping Trojan wives, who's come to view the outcome of the exploit. Go, Hercules. If you live, I live. With much, much more distress I view the fight than you who have to win by choosing right. Portia has changed her mind about the 3 caskets. She has now realized that it is a good test for true love. If you are the one to figure out which casket is the correct casket, you will also be the one who truly loves her. She says, come then, so go then to take the test of the caskets. For I am locked in one of them, her portrait is in one of the caskets. But if your love is true, you'll find me out, and if you truly love me, you will be able to choose the right casket. Nerissa and the rest all stand aside. Stand back out of the way to one side. Let there be music while he makes his choice. She does something different this time. She requests for music while Bassanio makes his choice. Then, if he loses, he'll end like a swan upon a stream, fading in music. The swan is a large water bird which was supposed to sing very sweetly just before he dies. It is believed that the swan doesn't make a sound, and the only time when he does is that sweet sound just before he dies. To complete the comparison, making it more true, so that the comparison of Bassanio to a swan fits more exactly. My eyes streaming with tears shall be the deathbed for him. Portia says, I'll cry a river of tears in which Bassanio will drown. If Bassanio makes the wrong choice, he will be dead, in other words, unavailable to her. But what if he chooses the correct casket? Then music is the flourish of bright trumpets when true subjects bow to a new crowned monarch. She's saying, then the music that is being played while Bassanio makes his choice will be like the joyful salute of trumpets played when loyal citizens bow down before their newly crowned king or queen. Then it's like the sweet sound at the break of day. If Bassanio chooses correctly, the music will be like the sweet sound of music at dawn. Portia also says that if Bassanio chose the correct casket, then the music playing would be like those sweet sounds at the break of day that creeps into the dreaming bridegroom's ear and summon him to marriage. It was a custom in Shakespeare's time for music to be played under the bridegroom's window on the morning of his wedding day. Now he goes, he refers to Bassanio, with no less presence, with dignity and nobleness. And then she talks about Hercules. She says, then the young Hercules, when he sets free the virgin princess chained to a rock as tribute refers to the sacrifice of a young girl, paid by howling Troy to the sea monster. I am that sacrifice. Now Hercules, who is also called Alcides, was a hero of ancient Greek mythology who rescued a young Trojan princess from being sacrificed to a sea monster by the terrified people of Troy. Hercules killed the monster in return for a reward from the king of Troy, and not because he was in love with the princess. Portia compares herself to this sacrificial victim. Some way off are the weeping Trojan wives, the people standing to one side, in other words Nerissa and all the other followers are the women of Troy, who've come to view the outcome of the exploit, who have come out with tear-stained faces to watch the outcome of the event. Nerissa and the rest have come to watch Bassanio take the test of the casket, just as the women of Troy would have gathered to watch the sea monster claim his sacrifice. Go Hercules! Even at such a serious moment, Portia cannot resist a little bit of humor teasing. Her exaggerated comparison are further examples of hyperbole. Portia is comparing Bassanio to Hercules. If you live, I live, just as the Trojan princess would only live if Hercules killed the sea monster. With much, much more distress, I view the fight than you who have to win by choosing right. Portia says that she's much more afraid of the outcome of this fight than the person who is going into the battle. In other words, she's far more afraid than Bassanio. If Bassanio makes the right choice, then Portia and Bassanio will be married today. I think it was difficult for Portia not to tell Bassanio which casket is the right casket. The music, which Portia asked for, begins at this point. A song is sung quietly in the background while Bassanio talks to himself about the caskets. This is an aside, and the other people on stage will pretend they can't hear what Bassanio says. Singer, tell me where fancy love is bred, in the heart or in the head, how it's conceived, how it is fed. Now, this song might be a hint to which casket must be chosen, but most critics believe that she has too much integrity to break her oath to her father. It asks whether true love comes from the heart or the head, and suggests that outward appearance might be deceptive. The song also contains several words rhyming with lead, which may be a hint to which casket is the correct one. The music creates a romantic atmosphere. Now, like the other suitors, Bassanio also takes some time to read the inscriptions on each casket and to try and figure out which casket might be the correct one. I wonder if Shakespeare didn't perhaps include the song so that the audience wouldn't have to listen to another recitation of the inscriptions on all the caskets. Now, what's your verdict? Tell me where fancy love is bred, tell me where love is born. How love is conceived, how it's fed, how is love created and sustained? The singer says, in the heart or in the head. Now we all know that true love is in the heart and not in the head. All, reply, reply, in other words, answer, answer. Singer, it is conceived in lover's eyes, with gazing fed and fancy dies. In the cradle where it lies, let's ring fancy love's death knell. I'll begin it, ding dong dell. It is conceived in lover's eyes, in other words, it is born or given life in lover's eyes. With gazing fed, gazing means the look of admiration, and fancy dies. Fancy is a young baby still in its cradle. And I'll begin it, ding dong bell. That is a form of onomatopoeia, and these words are meant to imitate the noise of church bells ringing, more specifically funeral bells. Now this song warns us not to judge on outer appearance. It says, if you love someone because of the way they look, it will not last very long, and therefore the funeral bells will ring, indicating the end of the love. Love must rather be based on respect, honesty, and loyalty. All ding dong bell. Bassanio. So what's outside may not be true within. The world's always deceived by glitzy show. In law, however rotten and corrupt a case may be, if it's argued with a pleasing voice and lawyer's subtlety, its evil is obscured. So in religion, there's no false doctrine that grave scholars cannot defend and prove with holy text, hiding the falsehood with a fancy argument. No vice is plain and simple. Everyone assumes some mark of goodness on the outside. How many cowards, whose hearts are all as false as stairs of sand, yet wear upon their chins the beard of Hercules and frowning Mars, and when put to the test are shown to have bellies as yellow as a day-old chick. All these assume the beard of hair of valor in order to be feared. Examine beauty, and you shall see that it's purged by weight of makeup kept in bottles, tubes, and jars, able to work miraculous change in nature. Those using it most to make their skin the whitest are morally the lightest. Let's analyze this section before we move on to the next. Here Bassanio is speaking to himself. He seems to have already read the inscriptions on all the caskets. The soliloquy is dramatic. It delays the choice and increases the tension. Bassanio says, so what's outside may not be true within. So it is that appearance may be quite misleading. The world's always deceived by glitzy show. People are continually led astray by appearances, a pleasing voice and lawyer's subtlety. In the law courts, isn't it true that even the most corrupt cases can become acceptable when it's argued with a pleasing tongue? Evil is obscured, evil is covered up. Can I defend and prove with holy text? What great sin isn't covered up by some serious-faced person who justifies it by quoting verses from the Bible? No vice is plain and simple. No evil or wickedness is plain and simple. Everyone assumes some mark of goodness on the outside. There isn't any wickedness which doesn't appear to have something good about it. Evil often tries to put on an outward show of goodness. A stair of sand refers to stairs cut into sandbanks, stairs which will collapse if anyone stands on them. And then Bassanio talks about the beard of Hercules and frowning Mars. Mars is the god of war, and when put to the test are shown to have bellies as yellow as a day-old chick, who, if their intestines were examined, would be found to have no courage at all. In other words, a person with a yellow belly is a coward. All these assume the beard and hair of valor in order to be feared. In those days, a man's beard was regarded as a symbol of strength and courage. Bassanio is saying that these people, in other words cowards, simply take on the outward sign of courage. They grow a beard to make them seem brave and terrifying, but in reality they are cowards. Examine beauty and you shall see it's purchased by the weight. Cosmetics are usually priced according to their weight. Those using it most to make their skin the whitest are morally the lightest. Those who wear the most or the heaviest makeup are often the lightest, are often the ones being corrupt. Now they often used powders in those days to make their skin appear white, but Bassanio is saying the ones with the most makeup actually has the least amount of moral values. Let's continue. Then too, the snaky curled and golden locks which make alluring dance steps with the wind around a painted beauty's face are often known to be the death gift of another head, the skull that grew them lying in the tomb. So outward show is just a treacherous shore to a most dangerous sea, a lovely veil that hides a face one thinks is fair, but turns out to be dark, a seeming truth behind which falsehood hides to trap the wisest. Therefore, Gorigold, hard food for greedy Midas, I won't have you, nor you, pale silver, you common slave, passing as coins from hand to hand, but you, mean-led, who seems to threaten more than promise any good. Your plainness moves me more than gold or silver eloquence. And here's my choice, joy be the consequence. Bassanio says curled and golden locks that dances in the wind. The same can be said of the curled and wavy golden hair which the wind blows so playfully on a seemingly beautiful woman's head, the skull that grew them lying in the tomb. Expensive wigs used to be made from hair removed from corpses, in other words, from dead bodies. Bassanio refers again to how misleading appearance can be. These women appear to have beautiful curled hair blowing in the wind, but in reality they are wearing a wig made from a dead man's hair. So outward show is just a treacherous shore, it is a deceitful beach. A lovely veil that hides a face one thinks is fair, but turns out to be dark. He is referring to a beautiful scarf concealing a lovely Indian woman. The Elizabethan idea of beauty was someone with blonde hair and a fair skin, and an Indian beauty would be dark-skinned. This could also be flattery of the Queen, since Queen Elizabeth had a very fair, in other words pale skin. You will therefore think that the girl is beautiful, but if you lift the veil, you would see they are actually ugly. Bassanio then says, therefore Gorigold, hard food for greedy Midas, I won't have you. Now there's an ancient Greek legend that tells the story of a king called Midas who wished that everything he touched would turn to gold. He was granted his wish, but didn't expect that his food would also be turned to gold. He finally begged the god to take back his gift. Bassanio describes the gold casket as showy, For him it is as unfit to choose as the food that was turned into gold was to be eaten. He finds the idea of choosing the gold casket distasteful. And then he refers to the silver casket. He says, "Nor you, pale silver, you common slave." The pale servant refers to man's everyday buying and selling. Most coins used in everyday business were made of silver. Silver is also pale compared to gold, passing as coins from hand to hand. In Act 1, Scene 1, Bassanio emphasizes Portia's wealth. Now, he rejects the silver casket because silver is also used to make money. Has Bassanio changed his idea about the importance of money? He says, "But you, mean lead, who seems to threaten more than promise any good." This applies to the appearance of the lead as well as to the inscription on the casket. It seems to threaten more than to actually have a promise of anything good. Your plainness moves me more than gold or silver eloquence. Your uninspiring appearance, in other words, the pale color and pale words on the leaden casket, excites me more than colorful persuasive ornamentation such as that of the other caskets. And here's my choice. Joy be the consequence. Bassanio finally chooses the lead casket, which is the right one. Portia, aside, how all the other passions vanish into air, like doubtful thoughts and rashly felt despair, and shuddering fear and green-eyed jealousy. O love, be moderate, calm your ecstasy, rain down your joy more gently, check this excess. Your blessing overwhelms me, make it less, for fear I die of too much. Portia speaks aside, which means only us, the audience, can hear. Portia is desperately trying not to show her feelings. Feelings such as doubtful thoughts vanish or fly away. And shuddering fear and green-eyed jealousy, jealous people are often described as becoming green-eyed monsters. O love, be moderate. Moderate means to be less intense. In other words, don't be so unrestrained. Calm your ecstasy. Quiet your extensive joy. Your blessing overwhelms me. Make it less. Pour out your joy in smaller amounts. Limit this overflowing happiness. So Portia tries to prevent her feelings from running away with her. Bassanio, opening the lead casket. What do I find? A picture of lovely Portia. What godlike artist has come so near the truth? Does these eyes move, or is it just because they follow mine? They seem to do so. Here are parted lips, severed from one another by her sugar breath. Only a line so sweet should separate such sweet friends. Here in her hair the painter has played the spider and has woven a golden mesh to trap the heart of men faster than knots in cobwebs. But her eyes, how could he see to do them, having made one? I think it should have had the power to steal both of his, leaving itself without a painted fellow. Bassanio opens the casket and sees the portrait of Portia. He is amazed by the beauty of the portrait. He says, "A picture of lovely Portia. What godlike artist, in other words, what artist is so much like a god that he's created such a lifelike picture? Has come so near to the truth? Do these eyes move? Is it possible that these eyes actually move? Or is it rather that they, in other words, the eyes in Portia's picture, seem to be moving because they are looking right at me?" He describes Portia's hair. He says, "Here in her hair the painter plays the spider. He acted like a spider, and has woven a golden mesh." A golden mesh refers to a net or a web. In corpse web, more tightly than insects are caught in a spider's web. Having made one, I think it should have had the power to steal both of his, leaving itself without a painted fellow. Bassanio says that when the artist had painted one eye of Portia's picture, Bassanio would have thought that eye would have had the power within its beauty to blind the artist. The beauty of Portia's eye would steal both his eyes, and thus leave itself, meaning the first eye, without a companion, without a second eye. In other words, once the artist has drawn the first eye of Portia, he would have been so mesmerized by the beauty of it that he would have been blinded by it and would not have been able to draw the second eye. Before we continue, just note where it says, severed from one another by a sugar breath, only a line so sweet should separate such sweet friends. I think I don't need to tell you, but there's a very good example of S alliteration. Now Bassanio uses hyperbole in his extravagant compliments to Portia to show how overjoyed he is. Let's continue reading. Yet look how far the matter of praise wrongs this picture by undervaulting it. Well, so far does this picture limp behind the subject Portia herself. Here's the scroll containing the full summary of my fortune. You that chooses not by the view, take a fair chance and choose as true, since this fortune falls to you. Be content and don't seek new. If you are well pleased with this, and think your fortune brings you bliss, turn to where your lady is, and claim her with a loving kiss. A noble scroll, fair lady. By a leave I come with writ, to give and to receive, like one of those contesting for a prize, who thinks he has done well in people's eyes. Hearing applause and universal shout, giddy in spirit, gazing, stunned in doubt, whether the ringing praise were his or no. So, lady, 3 times fair, I stand just so, as doubtful whether what I see is true, until confirmed, signed, ratified by you. Well, so far does this picture limp behind. Bassanio saying, yet all my praise fails to describe this picture adequately, and, in the same way, the picture is an inadequate reflection of the original, in other words, of Portia herself. Bassanio cannot find the words to describe the picture, but in the same way, the picture cannot describe the beauty of Portia. Containing the full summary of my fortune, which contains and sums up my good fortune. He reads the scroll, you that chooses not by the view. In other words, he that chooses not according to outward appearance. Take your fair chance and choose as true, since this fortune falls on you. This fortune is now Portia. In other words, Portia is now yours. Be content and don't seek new. Don't look for another fortune or another lady. And think your fortune brings you bliss. Believe that you will be happy with your present good fortune. The father says he can marry Portia. A noble scroll, a kind and noble worded message. Fair means beautiful. By your leave, with your permission, if I may. I come with a writ to give and to receive. Bassanio is actually asking for permission. Bassanio says he's like one of 2 contesting for a prize, who thinks he has done well in people's eyes, hearing applause and universal shout, getting in spirit, gazing, stunned in doubt, whether the ringing praise were his or no. He's saying he's like someone competing for a prize who hears applause and shouts of approval from the crowd, but who is still dazed and looking around uncertainly because he's unsure whether the shouts are for him or not. So lady 3 times fair, he's referring to her exceptional beauty. He's saying she's beautiful 3 times over. Until confirmed, signed, ratified. Ratified means to be agreed to or validated or authorized. Bassanio is saying, I stand here like that prize winner, doubtful that what I see is real until you tell me it is true. Now, according to the rules governing the test of the caskets, once a suitor had chosen the correct casket, he had the right to marry Portia and didn't have to actually ask for her consent. Why do you think Bassanio asked Portia to agree to marry him? Does he care about her feelings? So even though the casket gives him the right to now marry Portia, he still goes down on one knee and proposes, and then he kisses Portia. Portia, you see me, Lord Bassanio, where I stand such as I am. Though for myself alone I would not be ambitious in my wish to wish myself much better, yet for you I would be trebled 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair, 10,000 times more rich, if only to stand high in your esteem. I wish I could exceed all estimation in virtues, beauties, wealthiness, and friends. But all that I add up to isn't much. Just an uneducated girl, untaught and inexperienced, happy in this, that she's not yet too old to learn. Happier, she was not brought up so dull she cannot learn. Happiest of all is that her gentle spirit commits itself to yours to be directed as by her Lord, her Governor, her King. Myself and what is mine is now transferred to you and yours. Just now I was the lord of this fine mansion, master of my servants, queen of myself, and even now, just now, this house, these servants, and this my same self are yours, my lord. I give them with this ring. And when you part from it, lose it or give it away. Let it foretell the ruin of your love, and give me just cause to cry out against you. Portia is saying, you see me, Lord Bassanio, where I stand, such as I am, just as I am for what I'm worth. In other words, what you see is what you get. And then she says, to wish myself much better, yet for you I would be trebled 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair, 10,000 times more rich. If only I stand high in your esteem, I wish I could exceed all estimation. Portia says, I wish I were worth 3 times 20 more, only in order to be highly valued by you. Treble is 3, and when she says, I would be trebled 20 times myself, she says, I wish I were 60 times better than myself. She doesn't ask that for herself, but she wants to be the best wife that Bassanio can possibly have. And then she says about herself, but all that I am adds up to something that, to state it honestly, is only a girl with no learning, no training, and no experience of the ways of the world, but who is happy because she's still young enough to learn. Happier still because she wasn't born so stupid that she can't learn. Portia sees herself as an uneducated girl, but we know that is not true. Even though in those days women weren't allowed a formal education, Portia was a clever woman. She says she is still young and that there is enough time to learn. She refers to Bassanio as her lord, her governor, and her king, which indicates to us that she respects him. Where she says, just now I was the lord of this fine mansion, in other words of her house, master of my servants, and queen of myself. She made her own decisions, but from now on she will obey Bassanio. And then Portia hands Bassanio a ring. This ring is very important. She says, I give them with this ring, and when you part from it, lose it or give it away, let it foretell the ruin of your love. In other words, let the loss of this ring foretell the end or the downfall of your love for me, and give me just cause to cry out against you. Give me the opportunity to blame you for ending the love between us if you lose this ring. Bassanio, dear madam, you have robbed me of all words. I speak by instinct from my heart's blood only, for there is such confusion in my mind as, after some speech beautifully spoken by a beloved prince, occurs among the buzzing happy multitude, when all the elements joined together turn into a wilderness of complete and utter joy, expressed and unexpressed. But when this ring parts from this finger, my life parts from here. Oh, then be bold to say, Bassanio's dead. Portia leaves Bassanio speechless. He says, for there is such confusion in my mind. My mind is buzzing with many thoughts. The buzzing happy multitude refers to a crowd. When all the elements join together turn into a wilderness of complete and utter joy, just like a rejoicing crowd buzzes with talk after they've listened to a stirring speech made by a much-loved leader. Expressed and unexpressed, where words are spoken and yet their meaning isn't expressed, because individual people can't be heard above the noise of everyone talking excitedly at the same time. And then, without thinking, Bassanio makes a promise that if ever you wore a ring, would know is not possible to keep. He says, but when this ring parts from this finger, my life parts from here. Oh then, be bold to say Bassanio's dead. Without thinking, he promises the ring will only leave his finger when he is dead. Nerissa, my lord and lady, it is now our time, having stood by and seen our wishes prosper, to cry great joy, my lord and lady. Gratiano, my lord Bassanio, and my gentle lady, I wish you all the joy that you can wish, for I am sure I can't wish more for you than you wish for yourselves. And when your honours intend to solemnize your promises of marriage, let me beg one thing of you, that I may marry at the same time too. Now Gratiano also wants to get married, but first he says, for I am sure I can't wish more for you. My wishes couldn't make you any happier than you already are. Intend to solemnize your promises? When you intend to formalize your promises of love, in other words, when you take your marriage vows. When they do that, Gratiano also wants to get married. Bassanio, with all my heart, if you can get a wife. He says, Gratiano, you are most welcome, but you need to find a wife. Gratiano, I thank your lordship, you have got me one. My eyes, my lord, can look as swift as yours. You saw the mistress, and I saw the maid. You loved, I loved. For it is not my way, nor more than it is yours, sir, to delay. Your fortune stood upon the caskets there, and so did mine. And so it has turned out. I courted this sweet girl till I was in a double sweat, and swore until the very roof of my poor mouth was dry with oaths of love. And then at last, if promises do last, I got a promise from this beauty here to win her love, provided you chose right and won her mistress. Gratiano wants to marry Nerissa. He says, you saw the mistress, and I saw the maid. Now remember that Nerissa isn't Portia's servant, but her companion and waiting woman. This means that she's only slightly lower in social status than Portia. Your fortune stood upon the caskets there. It depended on, or it was determined by. In other words, your fortune depended on whether you chose the correct casket or not. And then at last, if promises do last, if promises can be trusted to last. I got a promise from this beauty here. This beauty here refers to Nerissa. Now Nerissa promised Gratiano that she will marry him if Portia and Bassanio gets married. Portia, is this true, Nerissa? Nerissa, yes, madam, if you're happy with it all. In other words, if we have your approval. Bassanio, and Gratiano, is this done in good faith? Do you seriously intend this? Gratiano, in perfect faith, my lord. Truly, indeed I do. Bassanio, our feast shall be much honored in your marriage. We will be honored to have you at our wedding feast. Gratiano, let's bet them 1,000 ducats will have the first boy. Nerissa, what you mean? With stake down in advance? Do you really want to put money down on that? Are you really serious? Gratiano, no, we'll never win at that sport with stake down. But who comes here? Lorenzo and his infidel? What? And my old Venetian friend Salerio? Now Gratiano is up to his old tricks again. He says, we'll never win if we show our money before the game starts. Gratiano could also mean we'll never win the bet with a limp penis. Another one of his under-the-belt jokes. Gratiano calls Jessica an infidel or non-Christian because she is Jewish, but he doesn't mean it as an insult towards her. He likes Jessica. Lorenzo, Jessica, and Salerio enter. Bassanio, Lorenzo and Salerio, welcome to Belmont. That's if, my new status being so recent, I have the power to welcome you. With your permission, my sweet Portia, I'm welcoming my dear friends and countrymen. Bassanio says, if my newly gained position here as master of the house gives me the right to welcome my friends. In this we see Bassanio is more formal in his welcome and skillfully uses it to introduce his friends to his new status and his future wife. Portia, and so am I, my lord. They're very welcome. Lorenzo, I thank your honor. For my part, my lord, it was not my intention to see you here, but when I met Salerio on the way, he begged me, past my power to say no, to come along with him. Lorenzo says that he didn't intend to visit Bassanio, but Salerio has persuaded him to do so. Salerio, I did, my lord, and I have reason for doing so. Signor Antonio sends you his kind regards. He gives Bassanio a letter. Bassanio, before I open his letter, please tell me how my dear friend is. Salerio, not sick, my lord, unless he's sick in mind, nor well, unless in mind. His letter there will tell you how things stand with him. Salerio is saying that Antonio is not sick unless he's sick in mind. Antonio is probably worried and depressed. Bassanio opens the letter and goes aside to read it. Gratiano, referring to Jessica, who is standing apart. Nerissa, take care of that stranger. Make her welcome. Your hand, Salerio. What's the news from Venice? How is that royal merchant Antonio doing? I know he will be glad of our success. We are the Jasons. We have won the fleece. Gratiano asks Nerissa to make Jessica feel at home. He takes Salerio's hand. He greets him by the hand. He asks, how is that royal merchant? In other words, how is that generous and honorable Antonio? We are the Jasons. We have won the fleece. Gratiano means we have been successful. He's referring to the same legend of Jason and the golden fleece, which Bassanio talked about in Act 1, Scene 1. Salerio, I wish he'd won the fleece that he has lost. The fleece refers to the treasures which Antonio has lost. This is a pun. Fleece sounds like fleets. Salerio is referring to the valuable cargoes on board Antonio's ships. Portia, there is some evil matter in that letter that steals the color from Bassanio's cheeks. Some dear friend must be dead, else nothing in the world could change the bearings of a steady man so much. What? Worse and worse? Allow me, Bassanio. I am half yourself, and I must have an equal share of anything that letter there has brought you. Portia notes that there is some unpleasant news in the letter Salerio handed to Bassanio, which has made Bassanio's face turn pale with shock. Where she says, allow me, she shows respect to Bassanio. She says, excuse this interruption, or with your permission. She's saying to Bassanio that your troubles is equally mine. Bassanio, O sweet Portia, here are a few of the unpleasantest words that ever blotted paper. Noble lady, when I first told you of my love for you, I freely told you all the wealth I had was in my blood. I am of noble birth. What I said then was true. And yet, dear lady, in saying I was worth nothing, as you'll see, I was exaggerating like a braggart. Instead of saying that I was worth nothing, I should have said I was worth less than nothing. The truth is, I'm in debt to a dear friend who has bound himself to his worst enemy to supply my needs. Here is a letter, lady. The paper's like the body of my friend, and every word in it a gaping wound, pouring out life blood. But is it true, Salerio? Have all his virtues failed? Not one success? From Tripolis, from Mexico and England, from Lisbon, Barbaria and India, hasn't one ship escaped the dreadful touch of merchant wrecking rocks? Bassanio has read the letter from Antonio, and now he confesses the truth to Portia. He says, I freely told you all the wealth I had was in my blood. I am of noble birth. I told you honestly that the only wealth I possessed was in my blood, in other words, what I have inherited, and that I was a gentleman. I came from a noble family. But then he confessed by saying, I should have said I was worth less than nothing. So, although he is of a noble family, he has no wealth of his own. The truth is, I am in debt to a dear friend who has bound himself to his worst enemy. I have put my friend under an obligation to his absolute enemy, and every word in it a gaping wound. A gaping wound means an open or a bleeding wound. Has all his ventures failed? Has all his business dealings failed? Hasn't one ship escaped the dreadful touch of merchant wrecking rocks? Hasn't one of Antonio's ships escaped the rocks that ruin merchants by wrecking their ships? The letter clearly states that none of Antonio's ships has returned, and therefore he cannot repay the loan. Salerio, not one, my lord. Besides, it's quite clear that if he had the ready money to repay the Jew, he would not take it. I have never known a creature that did have the shape of man so keen and greedy to destroy a man. Day and night he puts pressure on the Duke, and calls the freedom of the state in question if they deny him justice. 20 merchants, the Duke himself, and the great noblemen of highest rank have all tried to persuade him, but none can shift him from his vicious claim for the penalty, for justice, and his bond. Salarius says, besides, it's quite clear that if he had the ready money to repay the Jew, in other words, even if Antonio had the money to repay Shylock, Shylock doesn't want the money, he wants revenge. I have never known a creature that did have the shape of man, that did have the appearance of a man, so keen and greedy to destroy a man. Salarius using a metaphor which makes Shylock sound as if he is a wild animal ready to tear apart its prey. Day and night he puts pressure on the Duke and calls the freedom of the state in question. Shylock questions the impartiality of the law in Venice. He accuses the government in Venice of discrimination. If they deny him justice, if they refuse to allow him to claim the terms of the bond, in other words, if they refuse him a pound of flesh taken from Antonio's body, if the money wasn't paid back in time. 20 merchants, the Duke himself, and the great noblemen. Salarius is talking about the most important and powerful noblemen in Venice, of highest rank, have all tried to persuade him. They have all argued and pleaded and tried to reason with Shylock. Shylock is questioning the legal system of Venice. Venice prides itself on the protection that its system of justice gives to its citizens. Venice cannot afford to have its idea of justice discredited. Jessica, when I was with him, I have heard him swear to Tubal and to Claus, his countrymen, that he would rather have Antonio's flesh than 20 times the value of the sum he owed him. And I know, my lord, if law, authority and power do not stop him, things will go hard for poor Antonio. Countrymen refers to Jews that would rather have Antonio's flesh. There is an English saying, to get your pound of flesh. It means to get what belongs to you. In the play, Shylock wanted to cut off flesh from Antonio's body. Then 20 times the value of the sum, 20 times the amount of money which Antonio owed him. Things will go hard for poor Antonio if the law and the authorities in Venice don't prevent it. In other words, if they don't prevent Shylock from claiming his bond, it will be disastrous for Antonio. Jessica confirms that Shylock doesn't want anything else but a pound of Antonio's flesh. Even if somebody offers Shylock 20 times the value of the sum Antonio owed him, he will not take the money. He wants a pound of Antonio's flesh. Portia, is it your dear friend who is in such trouble? Bassanio, the dearest friend to me, the kindest man, the most good-natured soul who never wearies of doing acts of courtesy and goodness. He has more of the ancient Roman sense of honor than any man alive in Italy. Bassanio is saying that he has more of the ancient Roman sense of honor, which means he is more typical of the ancient Roman spirit of honor and loyalty. The honor that Bassanio refers to here is loyalty to one's friends and one's country. Portia, how much does he owe the Jew? Bassanio, on my behalf, 3,000 ducats. On my behalf, because of me. Portia, is that all? Pay him 6,000 and wipe out the bond. Double 6,000 and then treble that before a friend of this description shall lose a hair through any fault of yours. First go with me to church and marry me. Then off with you to Venice to your friend, for I shall never let you sleep with me with a worried mind. You shall have gold to pay the petty debt 20 times over. When it is paid, bring your true friend along. Meanwhile, Nerissa and myself will live like widows and old maids. That's it, I say. You'll go from here upon your wedding day. Welcome your friends. Pretend you're in good cheer. Since you have cost me dear, I love you dear. But let me hear the letter from your friend. Portia is willing to help, and she's even willing to give double 6,000 and then triple that in order to save Antonio's life. She refers to the debt as a petty debt, in other words, a small or insignificant debt. Portia says, meanwhile, Nerissa and myself will live like widows and old maids. She says, while you are away, we will behave like widows and old maids. And then in the last 2 lines she says, "Since you have cost me dear, I love you dear." Portia is referring to the price Antonia might pay, but probably also to the anxiety she will suffer while Bassanio is away from her. She also puns on the word dear. Dear means both expensive and someone you love. To Portia, love is more important than money. Bassanio, reading. Sweet Bassanio, all my ships are lost, my creditors grow cruel, my assets are down to nothing. My bond was not paid in time, so the penalty is due to the Jew, and since in paying it, it is impossible for me to survive, I hereby cancel all debts between you and I. If only I might see you before my death. In spite of all this, do as you wish. If your love does not persuade you to come, don't let my letter. In this letter, Antonio is not asking for Bassanio to come and save him. His only desire is to see his very best friend one last time before he dies. Antonio informs Bassanio that all his ships has sunk or has been wrecked. My creditors grow cruel. The people to whom I owe money are becoming impatient, demanding payment. And more specifically, Shylock. My assets are down to nothing. This could mean either my money or my state of mind is down to nothing. And then he says, if your love does not persuade you to come, don't let my letter. Antonio doesn't want Bassanio to feel obliged to return to Venice because of his letter. He only wants to see Bassanio if Bassanio's reason for returning to Venice is love for his friend. Portia, oh love, be quick, get everything done and go. Quickly finish all that needs to be done. I assume that includes marrying Portia. Bassanio, since I have your kind leave to go, I'll make haste, but till I return to you, on no bed will I shut my eyes, and no moment of rest will come between us two. They go out. Bassanio says, since I have your kind leave to go, since I have your kind permission, on no bed will I shut my eyes, and no moment of rest will come between us two. I won't go to bed, and neither will I allow any rest to come between the two of us. Bassanio means he won't sleep or even rest until he's reunited with Portia. But for now, I think we also need to get some rest. Remember to go through the rest of the notes, to copy it into your books, and to answer the questions. Good day.